Hello, fellow family and consumer science teachers. I'm excited to be with you to share one of my favorite classes to teach, which is Advanced Child Care Guidance Management and Services. I will be starting my 28th year of teaching family and consumer science courses. And back in 2001, I wrote my first grant to open the first child care guidance program at Magnet Cove. Taught it there for a few years before I moved on to Lakeside and taught the program there. And now I'm at Bismarck High School starting my 5th year with child care guidance management. I have had a very exciting summer. As you can see, this little man has stolen my heart. It's my very first grandson and grandchild, Miles Landon. So let's talk about common questions that many people have if they're just starting the child care program, or maybe you've had it several years and your observations aren't going as you wanted. What are some things that I've kind of picked up on over the last several years? The one thing that you need to look at is how your community can be of help to you as far as child care services. So what is around your school? Also, what support is your district going to give you? If you've got Head Start programs, licensed child care centers, ABC programs that may not be on campus, are they close to your school? And would you be able to have your students bused over to an area child care center? Or you may be in a situation like I have been over the past 4 years. It's been very challenging for me at Bismarck because we do have an on-site Head Start, but I have had to have the course being taught from 2:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And unfortunately, during that time, the Head Start Center is packing up the kids, getting them ready to go home in the afternoon during that time. So my students have had to rely on elementary, kindergarten, and first grade mentors to help us with our lab observations in the classroom. And I'll talk about some other opportunities for some students in just a moment. But I'm fortunate that I've pushed and finally gotten my administration to understand the struggles with having the class during that time. And so next year I'm very excited that I will have it from the 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock time period. So if you have the opportunity to select a time period, I would strongly encourage you to try to look at the morning from anywhere from 9 to 11. You're going to get most of the learning center activities, so your students will have ample opportunity for helping with child care learning. One more bit of information before I talk about certificates on help with observations is, do not forget that it's also important to look at what your student wants as far as their lab experience. If your student's not happy in the selection of mentoring experience that they're going to have in the lab, then they're probably not going to be excited about helping. And we don't want our mentor teachers to look at a high school student observing or being placed in their program as just another body in the room. So I have found that I really try during that standard 1 unit where we're looking at various careers in working with children, I really try to get to know my students individually and figure out where they might work best and give their best efforts in a lab setting. So for example, if I've got students who are thinking there is no way that they would want to ever teach, look at maybe some courses that they've taken. Are they in a lot of fine arts courses, and maybe connect them with the art teacher, the music teacher, maybe the media specialist. Do not forget that you're probably going to have students who have IEPs that they bring to your classroom with them. And some of my special education students are my very best lab students. And then some of them bring challenges. And so have a good connection with your elementary special education teachers. Some of your students may have been lifelong learners in the district. And so a lot of the special education teachers, if they've been there a while, they may recall your high school student as someone that they had in elementary, and they can probably help you to locate the best location for them. A lot of my special education students prefer to work in the elementary special education classroom. You may even have an opportunity for those students in child care guidance that may be taking the course because they're thinking of going into the health field. You may have the opportunity to look at your speech pathologist, your occupational therapist, physical therapist. Even the counselor may have some opportunities for your high school child care students to help out in labs. All right, now the second big question is about certification. So I'm sure by now you've had a chance to look at this. The only thing I want to stress here is remember that certification is going to be a great opportunity if we find ourselves in distance learning situations. So I encourage you to try to plan out the certificates that you want your students to have and get them enrolled, get their accounts set up for that within the first week of school, because we do not know how long we will get to be, on site with our students. And a lesson that I've learned is, even though you may think, well, these are juniors and seniors, they should be able to remember their username and password, but I found that I forget mine oftentimes. So it's great if you will document as your students are setting up these accounts, document what their username and password is, just to keep you from having to spend so much time relocating that for them with the different accounts that they're setting up. So as far as industry certification that is recognized at the State Department, these are the certifications that the state recognizes. At the end of every school year, most of the time your co-op is asking for some help from you on your completers and your concentrators and what industry certifications they have. Every concentrator or completer should leave high school having at least one industry certification. So these are the ones that are accepted by the State Department now. And in a few minutes, I'm going to share with you some additional employable certifications that I feel are just as important for our students to show on their job applications and to discuss in interviews. And I think I will quickly show you that right now. Oops, wrong screen. Here. So what I have here is just a list of various certifications. I guess I shouldn't call them industry certifications, because that's what the State Department considers industry, but I feel like these are employable certifications. So some of those are from EverFi, and you may have heard of EverFi when you think of the financial literacy certification. Again, I didn't list the financial literacy certification as an employable certificate that would help with students in child care guidance, but I think it would if you think about those students who want to go the route of owning their own business, opening up a children's clothing store, writing children's books, or even opening up their own licensing center, they're going to need those budgeting opportunities. So within this document, you're going to find a variety of things that I have tried to think about if my students are going out to try to find a job at a child care center, or maybe with, you know, a youth organization such as the YMCA. What are some things that I could help them to have to discuss, showing that they've gone above and beyond to learn all that they can about the importance of taking care of children. Best Care Connected, I can't say enough good things about these certifications. And I will tell you that I ran a child care center in the late 90s for about 4 years before I headed back into the classroom. And this past year, I asked one of my advisory members who has a Head Start in Arkadelphia if they still use these Best Care certifications for their child care workers. And she said, yes, definitely so. I'm going to show you that website really quick. I've got that up. This is the link to these are offered through the University of Arkansas Extension Agency. The reason I started here is because so many of us are teaching things other than child care courses. So there are lots of opportunities from additional training and certifications in a variety of things. But for child care, you're going to focus on child care providers. And so, whoops, I did something. Sorry about that. Mercy. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Okay. You are going to come to a screen like this, and they do still have the face-to-face trainings, but that would be very difficult for us. Every year they have 5 hours of online training where students can receive certification. The trainings are set up very similar to the food handler training. The only difference is at the end of food handler, you have that 45 question test that you have to pass in order to get the certificate. You do have a test to pass on these trainings, but there's only 10 questions. So if we could just kind of beef up the questioning, I'm hoping to try to connect with the extension service and see if we can't do some connections with possibly getting these to count for state recognized industry certifications in the future, because I know for a fact that our Head Start programs and many licensed centers are using these training as a way to count their child care workers' earned credit hours that they have to get each year. Guiding children successfully, when you watch the second part of my video on the different standard lessons, you're going to find a lot of certification opportunities that are set up here as well. So I just wanted to share with you some information like this. For example, here's another one. If I'm going to have a child that's going to babysit in the community, if I'm a new mom and I am going to ask a teenager to watch my child, I know that I would feel very grateful if I knew that they had some additional training on safe sleep practices. All of these trainings that I found are free, and they are through well-established websites. Here's some through the CDC. Now, the one thing that I want to say, and then these, of course, are the state recognized trainings specifically for child care guidance. I do not try to complete all of these certifications in 1 year. So one thing that I want to share with you that I do often is I set up a certificate folder. So this would be last year's seniors. I color code them by age. Last year's seniors, juniors, and sophomores. And as they receive certifications, I grab those, make them, send them to me so that I can keep them in their own little file. And that way, when they do need to show these in job applications, interview situations to help them in become more employable, then they can just grab this folder. A lot of your students are going to be sending you messages, hey, I'm applying for this job, can I use you as a reference? So that's key time for me to say, yeah, certainly use me for a reference, and remember all those certifications. Be sure and let them know that you have gone above and beyond and done some of these trainings. And do you still have that folder? If you don't, I can send it to you again. So this is something that I've just recently been doing, and I think it'll be very helpful to the students. As far as the state certification, this is the paperwork that you fill out to receive those child care guidance certificates, which can account for, let's see, I've passed, it's child care aide, child care assistant, and child care teacher. And so basically what you are doing is just looking at the courses that they took, and according to if they are a concentrator or a completer, according to the number of courses that they've taken, that will determine if they can receive one of the certificates, two, or even all three. But I wanted to mention that now because you are going to have to show the state that you have an advisory board, and that you have met with that advisory board each year at least 2 times. You'll have to send in your minutes for that. So keep that in mind as you're working on your certification information. Okay, so the next question that oftentimes is asked is, do I use a textbook? And most of us no longer use textbooks. We have so many resources out there available. But I will say that in this class, I do still tend to head to this textbook quite often. Now, my book is this exact one, and it is older, but it is very much still relevant. It's my understanding that Working for Young Children does now have an online textbook, so it might be a great time if you have the opportunity. It might be a great time for you to ask about possibly getting that online resource. What I love about this book is not only does it correlate great with our standards, but if you're looking to help students look into getting their child development associate certification, which actually they could do online. It's very difficult for them to finish in high school because there are so many hours that they have to have in lab experience. But they have to complete competency goals, and so we could at least get them ready up to the point that all that they would have to do is register for that CDA, and then we would already have them ready with the competency goals completed, and this textbook is great. So if I ever have students who are talking about doing that, I really give them that book and tell them, we're going to work one-on-one with you on this, and this book will help you specifically with that. Guest speakers, it's important for us to network with our students and, give them opportunities for meeting every type of career opportunity with children. So what I have found works well is allowing the student to reach out and find a guest speaker in the area of child development that they think that they may want to find employment with in the future. So after we cover standard 1 and we're looking at careers, I have them to narrow down what career field are they looking into working with children, and I have them reach out and think of a guest speaker that they would like to invite. Now, many times we do not have them in person. Oftentimes we have an email. We email a guest speaker questions that we may have, and we do our discussions that way. Now that we're so familiar with Zoom, I think that will be a great avenue in the future. But another skill that the students gain from this is once we complete visits with a guest speaker, whether it's online, through email, or face-to-face, I have the student who chose that guest speaker to follow up with a thank you note and bring that thank you note once they've developed it, bring it back to class, have everybody sign it. And so that's just a skill that's just as important, is to teach them those fine networking skills. Then I wanted to share another piece of information that in my co-op, which is Dawson Co-op, we have a wonderful technical advisor, April Shepard, and she gave us this resource, which is NEPRIS. So when we were struggling with getting our spring advisory meetings together, she offered this for us, which has professionals in different career areas. And so we were able to look at our own programs of study and reach out and listen to video links of professionals and how their day in and day out in that profession works, and how we can, as high school teachers, can help our students to help employ future child care students. And another opportunity that I have not used just yet, but there are some virtual tours. You can look at this industry chats where you can even have students differentiate the areas that they want to look at, and they can have one-on-one chats with professionals through that. So we in the Dawson Co-op area are going to have the opportunity to use this next year. So I'm sure I'll have a lot more to share with you about that in the future once I'm actually using it with my students in the classroom. And then another piece of information that I wanted to give you is just sometimes if you're new, you kind of get boggled down with where can I find things quickly. So if you will bookmark this website, that's going to be the Division of Arkansas Career and Technical Education. And once you get to that page, if you'll scroll down, they are in alphabetical order. So if you'll scroll down to Family and Consumer Sciences, you're going to find our standards, equipment lists, the programs of study with codes and recognizable industry certifications, and even scholarship applications for FCCLA. So I thought that would be of benefit too. And then last but not least, I wanted to give you a tidbit of information. If you haven't reached out to Facebook and found AMI for Teachers, we have all those mini lanyards from previous workshops and trainings, and I noticed this a few days ago, and I thought that would be of benefit. One last thing that I would like to share with you is many of us have to help our counselors and out at the end of the year when we are determining our programs of study. And so what I have done through the help of a past friend and fellow FACS teacher who is retired now, Miss Tanya Bolding, she shared this concept with me, and I've carried it along, and it's been very beneficial. So what I've done is described how students can be a concentrator or a completer. I've got the courses that I teach. Right now, I am just having one program of study, but I hope to bring in a second program of study in the future. And so I wanted to go ahead and put it on this document so that it would remind me to make sure that I'm talking to my students about this. So what my students do typically I wait until about September before I pass this out, because we all know that the first few weeks of school, kids are roaming in and out of particular classes that they're taking. But with this uncertain year coming up, this is going to be another one of those critical elements that I will do the first week of school. So I pass out this form to students that are new to me. If students have had me before, they have already filled out this form, and I have it in a big notebook that is divided by grade level and then put in alphabetical order. So if I've got a past student, I'm going to pull up what grade they are and give them their form, and they're going to go and fill in any incomplete information. So they're going to fill in the new class that they're taking. Let's say last year I had them for lifespan development, so they're going to put the date that they're taking the new class. And then maybe last spring when I had them for lifespan development, we completed some Best Care Connected certifications, so they're going to write those in. So this is just extra documentation so that when you get that message from your counselor in the spring requesting help on knowing how many concentrators and completers you have and what industry certifications they've received, this should be a quick access for you to have that. In the next section video, I'm going to be discussing the standard lesson resources. So I will speak to you in just a bit when I get a chance to get those called up.